So, Cerydra V5 is out. Does it change everything, or does it change nothing? Stick with me here. So, I'm not going to be talking about Heislands, as all her V5 changes were behind Eidolons. It was nothing for her base kit, and I just don't care about Heislands to begin with. I much less care about fucking E6 changes, right? So, what I want to talk about here is Cerydra. Yes, she did receive base kit changes in this V5, and one of them, or actually two of them, are both recommendations I and many others gave. One, they finally moved the additional damage that was locked to her E6 into base kit with a max of 20 procs, and it resets every time she ults, and it scales off of 60% of her attack. Obviously, every time the ally she selected with coup de main does a skill. Now, I don't think this is actually going to change all that much, right? For example, for a Phanon, I think this may add like 100 to 150k damage overall, and that's probably it, right? So the exact same thing applies for like an Anoxa. By the way, for Phanon, I was referencing one ult, right? So basically, outside of this, you now have the res pen buff, right? The res pen buff, incredibly controversial because they put that she needed to be in a departed state to give this res pen buff, meaning Phanon was literally the only character that you could use this on. It couldn't get any more blatant, right? So what they did is they finally made this universal. Anyone can activate this 10% res pen buff when they get peerage, which just means being at 6 stacks of Cerydra's, thingies for the double skill, right? Now, Anoxa can take advantage of this 10% res pen, meaning her value for Anoxa has now gone up with both buffs. However, for Phanon, it's only gone up and only through small additional damage. I truly don't think Cerydra is all that much stronger for Phanon. It's probably in the single digit percentiles and like the low single digits, right? Like this is probably a less than 5% increase for Phanon's overall performance. However, for Anoxa, if I had to guess, this probably makes her like 10% better over Tribby and Robin than she already was. So at this point, it makes Cerydra like a 15 to 20% upgrade maybe over Robin and Tribby for Anoxa. However, the same argument I've been using for Phanon for so long now is no different for Anoxa, and in fact more prevalent with Anoxa, since he doesn't get as much of a jump from getting Cerydra as Phanon does. Being, if you already have Robin or Tribby, just pull their E1. It's that simple. Just pull either or's E1s and they will outperform an E00 Cerydra while being way more general for so many other teams. However, I will say the E1 bait for Anoxa specifically is actually a very real thing, right? Now, the reason for this being, Anoxa gets 28% defense shred in his base kit, scaling off of the amount of weaknesses enemies have on them. If they have a max of 7, I believe every single weakness is 4% defense reduction. So this means Anoxa, he will get 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7, and this means he will get 28 defense shred, right? 28 defense shred. Plus the light cone that gives 12, and plus genius set that gives 20 is 60%. And Cerydra's E1 for the peerage skills gives a total of a 36% defense shred increase. So this means that like half of Anoxa's skills, maybe a little less, because sometimes that does happen. Sometimes he won't do a quad skill with peerage because he'll kill the first wave with 1 or 2 skills, and then when you move on to the second wave with like Svarog, let's say, the third skill doesn't have weaknesses on enemies, so it won't trigger a fourth after this, right? But basically, Anoxa can get 96% defense shred on peerage skills, and that is very noticeably powerful. Now, I wish they would have just buffed the fucking E1's energy. I've been saying this for a while. If they added a 15 to 20 energy thing to the E1 when she uses her skill on someone, like, it would be so much better for Anoxa, and I would be like, 100% go for this E1 on Cerydra if you want to go long-term Anoxa investment. But because of that, the only thing she has to offer is basically the E1 for Anoxa if you really want to go for that. But once again, E1 Tribby and E1 Robin are so much better investments, I advise against it, right? So, does this mean I will be pulling Cerydra for my Anoxa on my Anoxa account, right? Will I fold? No. Right, no. I'm just going to wait for Siren. That little of a overall increase in performance for Phanon, and although this is mainly a buff for Anoxa in V5, she, once again, is probably like 15% better than the likes of Robin and Tribby, so I really would just rather not pull her at all, and I'd rather wait for Siren, right? Love you all. Hope you have a great day. Hope you all have a great night. I'll update you guys with a more, well-based video once I see gameplays, right? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm talking out of my ass. The additional damage from Cerydra absolutely changes everything. However, with what I'm currently seeing, I really don't think this changes much at all, and it changes the most for Anoxa mains, right? Not even Phanon mains, where her value was already questionable. Love you all. Hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great night, and peace out.